So we know what's going on, and if you think this was the first North Korean rodeo, you must be mistaken. Not only that the Hermit Kingdom is not so isolated as we think, but the situation is actually way more complex. From Jimmy Carter to Dennis Rodman, the list is not so short at all. When you think about all the people that visited North Korea, like even in 2015, even the great Slovenian rock group Laibach played the first rock concert there. That's just unbelievable. And similar to what happened lately in Ukraine, North Koreans are engaging in a nefarious game where they seem as though they don't need anyone, and then they're caught red-handed. Actually, I don't think they believed that the whole Ukrainian adventure was just an exercise. They were probably accused of something. It was probably because so they can protect their families. However, some of them might want to switch teams after they learn about the advantages of our luxurious, decadent society, such as the free Wi Fi and accompanying porn. However, the decades long brainwashing has already done irreparable harm to many of them, and those who still have hope and wish to defect would reconsider before crawling, approaching Ukrainian defenders with the white flag, and I'll tell you why. Once they get into Western nations, RGB may abduct them, particularly if they're former North Korean officials, freedom campaigners, or heaven forbid scientists or investigative journalists who were, quotation mark, born again. Well, that's why retaliation is what they fear most. The main foreign intelligence agency of North Korea, as I have said, RGB, or Reconnaissance General Bureau, was created in 2009 by combining several intelligence and special operations divisions. So once those dissidents or deserters they get in Western nations, they're risking everything. RGB might abduct them, particularly, as I have said, if they're former officials, freedom campaigners, or so on, right? In the past, during the Cold War, the RGB's predecessor engaged in the kidnapping of even foreign nationals for propaganda and espionage purposes. Over the years, North Korea Reconnaissance General Bureau has been implicated in multiple kidnappings of foreigners. And here are just a few famous examples. On Kim Jong-il's directives to boost North Korea's film industry, South Korean actress and her husband, the film director Choi Foon-hee and Shin Sang-ok, were abducted in Hong Kong and transported to Pyongyang in February 1978. I mean, this is outlandish, to kidnap people so they can film like a propaganda for a freaking dictator. That's crazy. So also, Reverend Kim Dong-shik, a South Korean missionary and lawful resident of the United States, was kidnapped in Yanji, northeastern China, in January 2000 while assisting North Korean refugees. North Korean operatives and their Korean Chinese accomplices kidnapped South Korean pastor Reverend An Sung-woo in southern Manchuria in July of 1995. Almost 3,800 people were kidnapped and transported to North Korea during the Cold War or after the Korean War. And I would say 3,400 have not returned to South Korea as a result of the protests by the South Korean government and numerous initiatives carried out by the Korean National Red Cross. Additionally, 6 people have lately fled the north and made their own way back to South Korea. As of December of 2007, almost 500 South Korean abductees are still in North Korea against their will. I'll save that for another time, since I don't want to go down the rabbit hole and talk about the entire string of kidnappings of Japanese and other countries' citizens. It's a long story. My point is, I would assume that retaliation is what possible defectors, including Korean soldiers in Ukraine, are fearing the most. You must have noticed that very few are actually surrendering, right? And the RGB is, which was created in 2009, as I have said, by combining several intelligence and special operations division, is in charge of everything: is cyber warfare, foreign intelligence gathering, clandestine operations, I guess kidnapping and assassinations as well. So yes, attempts to kill defectors such as Kim Han-sol in 2017 and Hwang Yang-yop in 2010 are noteworthy operations. Under divisions like notorious Bureau 121, the RGB also oversees North Korea's cyber capabilities. These groups launch hacking efforts against Bitcoin platforms, businesses, and governments abroad. The RGB gathers intelligence on nations like Japan, the US, and South Korea. It also oversees propaganda campaigns and infiltration operations. Now, you might understand why there are not so many defectors or deserters. So let's move on to North Korean involvement in other conflicts so you can understand how deeply they were actually involved in the world that obviously we don't know, right? So there were numerous additional notable examples in addition to North Korea's invasion of South Korea, which sparked the Korean War. Which if I remember it right, it lasted 3 years from 1950 to 1953 and resulted in substantial international participation, including help from China and the Soviet Union. So, Hezbollah, for instance. So, several accounts claim that Hezbollah and North Korea started working together in the late 1980s. Terrorists from Hezbollah were transported to North Korea during this time to receive military training. North Korea has provided extensive assistance to Hezbollah in building sophisticated tunnel systems. In 2003 and 2004, North Korean structures supervised the construction of underground facilities in Lebanon, including arm dumps, food stocks, and dispensaries. A larger tunnel system, reportedly 45 kilometers long, was built with North Korean assistance through Comit, or a North Korean front company, at a cost of $13 million. And these tunnels have significantly enhanced Hezbollah military capabilities, allowing for concealed movement of forces and equipment both, as well as storage of weapons and supplies. Also, instruction in guerrilla warfare tactics and the construction of underground facilities. Well, North Korean specialists were involved in developing Hezbollah. It's really something I could not possibly expect. Particularly when it comes to building extensive tunnel networks used for storage and as a defensive positions against Israeli forces. And Hezbollah operational strategies have been influenced by North Korean military doctrine. Israeli experts have noted that Hezbollah operates as a defensive guerrilla force organized along North Korean lines, utilizing tactics learned from their North Korean counterparts. North Korea's expertise in tunneling has been pivotal in enhancing Hezbollah military's infrastructure. The construction of a vast network of tunnels and bunkers in southern Lebanon was supervised by North Korean advisors, allowing for secure storage of weapons and quick movement of troops. Other reports indicate that North Korean companies have continued to assist in the development of sophisticated underground systems for Hezbollah, including command centers and missile launch sites. For instance, a recently discovered 45-kilometer tunnel was reportedly built with assistance from a North Korean front company. And I think I already said that. And this collaboration was just something really I'm so surprised. I wouldn't expect that. But the partnership between Hezbollah and North Korea has significantly helped operational effectiveness, contributing to its resilience as a militant organization in the Middle East. And then there's also PLO, of course. Since the 1960s, North Korea has maintained a partnership with the Palestinian Liberation Organization that has included arms supply, financial support, and military training. Beginning in the middle of the 60s, North Korea gave financial support and military training to the PLO. This sounds like like really unbelievable. They gave them financial support. From where? From where? Like, okay, and other to PLO and other Palestinian organizations. So, following the events of Black September in 1970s, when Palestinian militants were driven out of Jordan and began looking for new friends and locations of operations, this support grew. So, during the 70s and the 80s, the several Palestinian leaders traveled to North Korea, including Yasser Arafat and George Habash of the Popular Front from the Liberation of Palestine, or PFLP. So these trips strengthened military ties, which led to North Korea arming and training Palestinian militants. So PLO received training from North Korean military instructors in a variety of military skills like explosives, guerrilla warfare, and special operations, of course. So hundreds of Palestinians were reportedly trained in North Korea during this time. I don't know what they were eating, though. North Korea has supplied a range of weaponry to Palestinian groups, including hand grenades and rocket launchers. During conflicts such as the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982, Israeli forces captured North Korean arms intended for PLO fighters. And NK's involvement with the PLO decreased following the end of the Cold War. However, after Hamas seized power in Gaza in 2007, ties were restored. As a part of its ongoing objective to support Palestinian sovereignty and oppose Israeli aggression, North Korea started aiding Hamas in its battle against Israel. North Korea continues to support Palestinian sovereignty over all of Israel's claimed lands and regularly votes in support of Palestine at international fora like the UN. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has denounced Israeli military operations as crimes against humanity throughout multiple Hamas wars. According to recent allegations, Hamas might have used North Korean weapons during major strikes against Israel, pointing to a continuing arms trade that funds violent actions against alleged adversaries. Yes, and also alleged aggression. During the Vietnam War, believe it or not, up to 200 North Korean pilots took engaged in battle against American forces and helped develop the country's air defense system. North Korea backed North Vietnam's goal of reunifying the nation, and the two countries had communist connections, obviously, right? In order to achieve their own goals in South Korea with less opposition from the United States, North Korea viewed the Vietnam War as a way to deflect American focus and resources away from the Korean Peninsula. By taking part in the Vietnam War, North Korea aimed to build its air force and provide its pilots real-world experience. Hanoi granted North Korea's request to deploy an Air Force regiment to Vietnam in September of 1966. Boy, that was even before I was born. According to the deal, North Koreans would serve out of the same airfields, be integrated into Vietnamese Air Force regiments, and don't have Vietnamese uniforms. And between 1967 and the beginning of 1969, 87 members of the North Korean Air Force were stationed in North Vietnam. Numerous North Korean pilots are said to have engaged in air combat with American forces. So, because, they provided pilots while Vietnam supplied the aircraft, technical equipment, maintenance, and logistical support. It was mostly MiG-17s and MiG-21s. Those were the main aircraft flown by the North Koreans. And again, North Koreans pilots were organized into companies and integrated into Vietnamese Air Force regiments. Initially, they were assigned to existing Vietnamese regiments, but the plan was to eventually form a separate North Korean regiment with its own airfield. Over North Vietnam, U.S. Air Force and Navy pilots and North Korean pilots engaged in aerial combat. In one instance, on February 12th, involved Korean MiG-21 intercepting a flight of F-4 Phantoms, resulting in one North Korean pilot being shot down. At least 14 North Korean pilots died during the war. And a cemetery in Bac Giang province, Vietnam, contains the graves of North Korean pilots whose bodies were recovered. While the North Korean pilots were considered brave, they were often described as, quotation mark, too slow and too mechanical in the reactions, leading to losses. What else? The North Koreans did not always obey flight directions, according to several Vietnamese pilots. Although U.S. sources have not verified the claims, North Korean pilots claim to have shut down 26 American aircraft. North Korean pilots' alleged involvement in the Vietnam War remained unsubstantiated for many years, and Vietnamese military histories frequently refer to them as Group Z. Oh my God, another Z thing, eh? And nothing is known about their efforts. The fact that North Korean pilots flew in combat against American aircraft during the Vietnam War was formally recognized, believe it or not, by both North Korea and Vietnam only in 2000. In year 2000. And that's of course not everything, because there's Angola too. The Angolan Civil War began in 1975 after Portugal left. Other nations that were not under Portuguese colonial control at the time, like South Africa and Cuba, joined the conflict. And during the Angolan Civil War, North Korean forces fought alongside the MPLA government against the UNITA rebels. They offered direct combat support as well as military instruction. Angola. Well, North Korea was a major player and by arming the ruling MLPA and or People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola. And over 3,000 North Korean soldiers and 1,000 advisors fought alongside the MPLA against UNITA and South African forces. And during and after the conflict, North Korean troops supplied military knowledge and taught the Angolan armed forces. North Korea provided Angola with military hardware and weapons, including surface-to-air missile systems, and renewed new Navy patrol boats. By operating as armed dealers throughout embassies in Angola, North Korean officials frequently evaded UN restrictions. A UN-approved North Korean company called Mansudae Overseas Projects finished 56 production projects in Angola, including erecting the country's first president's tomb. Up until recent years, North Korea employed about 1,000 people in a variety of industries in Angola. Angola has separated from North Korea in recent years due to pressure from other countries. Nearly 300 North Korean employees were deported by Angola in 2020, and in 2023, North Korea declared the closure of its embassy in Angola, indicating even more disengagement. According to reports, North Korean military advisors helped the Syrian Arab Army organization operations and carry out artillery bombardments, demonstrating their readiness to get involved in wars that serve their political objectives. So no surprise they're in Ukraine. North Korea's material, military, and scientific assistance to the Assad government has been a major, if covert, factor in the Syrian civil war from 2011 to 2024. There have been claims that North Korean military forces are present in Syria. Notably, two militia units, Chalma or Kalma 1 and Kalma 7, or is it 2, I don't know, were allegedly sent to the Jobar neighborhood of Damascus and took part in military actions, such as the Aleppo War. Between 300 and 3,000 North Koreans are thought to be involved. And it is thought that Syrian forces received assistance from North Korean advisors throughout significant offensives, including the campaign in Al-Qusayr in May 2013. Additionally, according to some reports, North Korean officers were based on Jabal Qasyun, which is close to Damascus. By providing Syria with ballistic missiles like Hwasong-5 and Hwasong-6 systems, North Korea improved Syria's ability to deter Israel. Also, there was a chemical weapons assistance. According to UN investigations, between 2012 and 2017, North Korea sent supplies to Syria linked to chemical weapons. The chemical weapons program in Syria was totally aided by the supplies. And man-portable air defense systems were there included as well. So Pyongyang's involvement as a supplier of cutting-edge weapons to Damascus was highlighted in 2014 when ISIS captured North Korean manpads. Pyongyang's objective of reducing Western influence and strengthening its ties with allies like Iran and Hezbollah is totally in line with its support for Assad. And the civil war is not the first time North Korea has been involved in Syria. Since the 1970s, Pyongyang has dispatched engineers and military consultants to Syria to help modernize weapon systems from the Soviet era and to take part in previous confrontations, such as the Yom Kippur War. Supporting Egypt and Syria against Israel during the Yom Kippur War in 1973, North Korea had a small but interesting role. And during the conflict, North Korea provided Egypt with about 40 Air Force troops and 1,500 military advisors. Well, I heard some Croatian pilots flew on the Egyptian side, but that's not something, not this time. All right, so North Korean airmen participated in combat flights against Israeli aircraft while flying MiG-21 fighter jets alongside the Syrian and Egyptian air forces. Over Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula, Israeli pilots reported engaging in dogfights with North Korean piloted MiG-21s. And for example, 2 MiGs flown by North Koreans were shut down by Israeli jets on October 6 in 1973. Israeli F-4 Phantoms and North Korean MiGs engaged in combat against south of Cairo. And during this event, Egyptian SAM systems unintentionally shut down one of their own MiGs, according to some accounts. Well, that happens in Russia all the time and Ukraine. Russians are specialists in shooting down their own people. North Korean pilots took part in operations to secure the frontiers of Damascus while attached with the Syrian Air Force. Their presence was confirmed when Israeli intelligence intercepted conversations in a language that was later determined to be Korean. Additionally, North Korea dispatched experts to teach local soldiers to utilize and operate Soviet-made missile weapons. North Korea's participation was a component of a larger Cold War policy to back anti-Western governments and cement its alliances with countries such as Egypt and Syria. Kim Il-sung wanted to support Arab attempts to oppose Israel because he saw it as, quotation mark, imperialist satellite, even though their part was minor in comparison to other foreign players like the Soviet Union or Cuba. North Korea's involvement shows that it is prepared to get involved in wars outside of its borders in order to defend ideological friends and counter Western intelligence, Western influence. Or maybe it's all because our favorite fat dictator loves our food so much. Zimbabwe, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but the 5th Brigade, trained in North Korea, became notorious for its brutal tactics during operations against perceived enemies of the state, particularly supporters of Joshua Nkomo's Zimbabwe African People's Union, or ZAPU. During a turbulent time of political persecution and bloodshed in 1983, North Koreans were heavily involved in Zimbabwe's military operations. The 5th Brigade, a special unit of the Zimbabwe National Army that was ordered in by then-President Robert Mugabe, we all know who that guy is, right? To quell dissent, especially against the Ndebele ethnic minority in the Matabeleland region, was the main means of this engagement. And during the Cold War, North Korea backed several African liberation groups, which led to the development of partnership between Zimbabwe and North Korea. And this partnership grew stronger after Zimbabwe gained its independence in 1980, when Mugabe's administration received military support and training from North Korea. By mid-1983, most North Korean advisors had returned home, but their influence was still present in the structure and tactics of the 5th Brigade. The unit continued to operate under Mugabe's command without direct oversight from North Korean personnel. Despite their withdrawal, the legacy of their training contributed to ongoing human rights abuses in Zimbabwe. The Gukurahundi massacres were a string of crimes that began with the 5th Brigade's deployment. An estimated 20,000 Andabilla people were killed as a result of these activities between 1983 and 1987. The government's defense of these brutal measures as a tool to crush militants is reflected in the Shona's phrase Gukurahundi, which translates to the early rain that washes away the chaff. According to survivors' accounts of horrifying experience and the discovery of community burials throughout the impacted areas, the savagery of these events has been characterized as a genocide. No joke. Well, today, North Korea has sent troops to support Russian forces against Ukraine, becoming involved in the ongoing conflict, in the ongoing aggression, we should say. So, according to reports, over 11,000 North Korean soldiers have been sent out, but they're dealing with severe operational difficulties and fatalities. Never mind, they cannot understand anything Ukrainians or Russians are saying, right? So these troops have been engaged by Ukrainian forces who have captured some of them and suffered significant casualties. Estimates indicate that around 3,000 North Korean soldiers have been killed so far, and that's a very conservative number, I have to say, because these guys just keep coming. All right. North Korean troops in Ukraine are thought to represent a major war escalation with ramifications for international security dynamics. And today's North Korean military engagement is a component of a larger geopolitical conflict around Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The scenario illustrates how authoritarian governments' partnership are changing, and as North Korea uses its military assistance to help Russia's endeavors while also giving its own soldiers combat experience. What is experience for if you die there? How stupid do you have to be? Beyond Ukraine, the political repercussions could have an impact on ties between superpowers like China, South Korea, and the United States. With a mutual defense treaty in place since 1961, China is currently North Korea's most significant ally. With North Korea providing Russia with troops, weaponry, and ammo for its war in Ukraine, ties with Russia have greatly improved. North Korea has offered military assistance and keeps an embassy in Syria. Iran has an embassy in Pyongyang and shares strategic objectives with Cuba, which has maintained a good relationship with the country throughout history. And Laos shares similar ideologies and has an embassy in Pyongyang. Vietnam also has an embassy and historical ties to Pyongyang. Despite allegations of severing connections, evidence indicates that Cambodia retains an embassy in both Pyongyang and Uganda because of the country's personal affection for the Ugandan president. In 1963, Uganda established diplomatic ties with North Korea, which were briefly interrupted until being resumed in 1972. Uganda received military assistance from North Korea in the form of weapons, gear, and security force training. And President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda met with Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, on his 3 trips to Pyongyang. This guy's old. Now, I think he's almost, 80, 90, I don't know. Lastly, Tanzania, which has a history of medical and military collaboration. But I'll stop here. Actually, a lot can be said about the behavior of Hermit Kingdom actors. In contrast to this nation, which is allegedly so remote that you wouldn't anticipate this level of international involvement, even Mongolia appears to be an open, promising land. Please understand that I believe Mongolia to be a very amazing country. My point was, when was the last time you heard news from there? That's all. Our least favorite beast and obscene dictator will undoubtedly remain in power. I might see a chance for poor North Koreans when he suffered a heart attack from consuming so much decadently delicious Western food and alcohol. That, or the Ceausescu exit, which is my favorite fate for criminals in power and is perfectly appropriate for both Fat Fudge Kim and the KGB midget. Yes, the Muscovite evil empire must go first in order to get rid of Pyongyang shenanigans, but only if it happens swiftly and thoroughly. I wonder who is worse to his own people, Maduro, the Caracas bus driver and empanada muncher, or Fat Fudge Kim? Well, No one is innocent in this tale. Even if Pol Pot was the clear winner, you yourself, you can pick your own favorite dictator. As always and forever, stay selective. Bye-bye.